Good day. Today, I will be reporting about my mung bean experiment, which involved planting a mung bean plant and observing its morphological changes. Experiment overview. The experiment was conducted about the observation of the morphological changes within a mung bean plant as it germinates from a seedling and into a plant. So, the experiment was conducted on a 21-day time period divided into 3 weeks. Within these 3 weeks, the morphological changes within the plant was observed, along with specific trends and changes in the structure and morphology of the plant as it germinates from a seed and grows into a more mature plant. The seeds were the starting point of the experiment. So prior to starting it, the group collected seeds and distributed them equally to each group member. So for our group, which is group 1, we got our seeds from Bustillos Market in Sampaloc, Manila. And then prior to the experiment, the seeds were planted into 3 to 4 inches deep of loam soil and then watered and allowed to germinate. Initial observations. Observations had no clear growth. Seeds were soaked in water and then planted 3 to 4 inches deep in loam soil. Each pod had at least 12 to 14 seeds scattered around different areas. So for the planting methodology, each pot were prepared and then transplanted with enough soil to fill it to the brim, and then each pot was equipped with 6 to 7 holes. These holes, measuring 3 to 4 inches deep, are then planted with 2 seeds each to ensure that there are more seeds that could germinate into more mature plants, and to ensure that there is equal growth along the whole pot. Observations for the first week. So for day 3 to 4, seeds were taken and replanted because they were planted too deeply. They had already germinated at this point. So for day 3, I was wondering why there was no growth within the topsoil or why no seeds have germinated yet. So I've decided to dig up each individual seed and check whether they have been planted too deeply, and it was the case. The seeds were planted too deeply, so what I did was I carefully removed each seed, preserving roots along the way, and then replanted them in 2 inches beyond the topsoil instead of the initial 3 to 4. For day 5, the germinated seedlings had obvious cotyledons, and their stalks, their stems, and leaves started to transition from white to green. And in day 6, the seedlings started to form their first 2 leaves. Observations within the second week or day 8 to 14. For the first observation, it was observed in day 8, where the trichomes of the stem already developed. In day 9, significant longitudinal and lateral growth of the stem and leaves. So the stem significantly grew outwards and the leaves also grew. So there was exponential growth in the second week. For day 11, I noticed that the mung plant was exhibiting skewed growth, and upon researching, skewed growth is due to insufficient sunlight, which is evident by the lack of sunlight in the formation of white discoloration in the stem. So, upon closer inspection, the stems of the mung plant also had white discoloration. Upon researching both of these symptoms, it has been found out that these symptoms are due to insufficient sunlight, which is because my window does not really permit enough sunlight for them to really utilize the sunlight. For the last observation, which is day 14, trichomes become more stiff and prominent. So within day 8, the trichomes started developing. In day 14, at the end of the second week, the trichomes have stiffened and are more inept for plant mechanisms, and defense. For the third week observations, or day 15 to 21, at day 16, terminal buds develop into true leaves, formation of more leaf nodes. So, within the initial two leaves in the first and second week, at day 16, the plant started developing more leaf nodes and thus developed more leaves by the end of the week. At day 17, height growth significantly decreases and leaf growth significantly accelerates. So, growth is not really at the height, but rather at expanding the leaves to gather more sunlight. At lastly, day 19, first leaves shed due to insufficient sunlight. So, within this, I have noticed that there were wilting leaves in the pot that have unfortunately shed from the plant. So, upon researching, this could be due to insufficient sunlight or insufficient water. But in this case, I've determined that it was due to insufficient sunlight. For the growth chart of the stem, there is exhibited exponential growth from the first week up to the second week. So the plant grew significantly for the first 2 weeks. However, in the final week, which is week 3 or day 15 to 21, the growth is quite stunted because in my research, it's because of either the plant, it's in based on the genetics of the plant, or that there is insufficient nutrients in the soil or sunlight to allow the plant to grow bigger and stronger. For the growth chart of the stem girth from first week to third week, we see exponential growth also within the first and second week. However, for the third week, it also exhibited stunted growth. Now, this could also be attributed based on my research to insufficient sunlight, insufficient nutrients in the soil, or the genetics of the plant itself. To conclude the experiment, I want to make several conclusions in regarding to the mung bean plant experiment. So, for the first conclusion, initial accelerated growth and then stunted growth due to insufficient sunlight or plant genetics. Now, second conclusion, based on what I've seen in internet online sources, the plant, despite its stunted growth in the third week, still exhibits a normal growth pattern that is characteristic of mungo plants in the Philippines. Third conclusion, I have been able to observe the morphological changes of a mung bean plant from germination to growth. So I was able to observe how it turned from a seedling into a more bigger plant with more rigid stem and leaves. And lastly, no observed floweration and formation of pods. This is because the experiment was not long enough to cover the germination, the point of maturity of the mung plant, which is where it starts flowering and starts producing its pods.